Swagatam, welcome. Swagatam sadhavaha, welcome good people. I was thinking I would start each class with a breakdown of a specific mantra, usually a famous mantra. So that's just a nice thing to do. And so the first mantra I want to do is the oldest of all mantras. And I think it's fair to say it's the oldest mantra in the world. You know, it's certainly the oldest mantra in Sanskrit, which is in continuous usage, but probably the oldest mantra like prayer in the world that we have still in use, right? It's still living. And this, of course, is the so-called Gāyatrī mantra, which is properly called the Savitri Gāyatrī mantra, because Gayatri is a form, it's a form of mantra. And so what people call the Gayatri is a specific Gayatri. It's the first and earliest Gayatri, but it is a specific Gayatri. It is the Savitri Gayatri. So Savitri refers to the deity of the mantra, Savitar, which is the deity of the rising sun, rising and setting sun, but especially the rising sun. So that's Savitar. So therefore the Gayatri, this old Gayatri from the Rig Veda is the Savitri Gayatri. Okay, it is from the third book of the Rig Veda, the third mandala, the 62nd hymn, and it's the 10th verse. So it's Rig Veda 3.62.10 that reads Om Bhur Bhuvaha Swaha Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat. Now, let me correct what I just said, because actually there's some sacred syllables that preface the mantra that are not in the original hymn. They were added later. So the original hymn, Rig Veda 3.62.10, third book, 62nd hymn, 10th verse, is simply Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat. So let me explain just a little bit more. First of all, it's this is the oldest section of the Rig Veda. The Rig Veda itself is the oldest text in any Indo-European language. Now, it's not the oldest kind of material we have in any Indo-European language, but it's the oldest kind of coherent text. So we have equally old Hittite documents that are not poetry. This is the oldest poetry in any Indo-European language. And how old is it? Well, we estimate probably 1800, 1700 BC. So like I said in the last class, we have this nice symmetry that the record of living Sanskrit literature goes from about 1700 BC to about 1700 AD. So right at the beginning there, so the first book of the Rig Veda is not the oldest because stuff was added to the beginning and end. So the Rig Veda, which literally means the knowledge of the hymns, Rik being a hymn, the oldest material is the third to the eighth or seventh or eighth book. So there in that third book, we get this hymn. Now, it's not right to call it a book because it wasn't written down for millennia, actually. Right? As I already said, it was transmitted orally. So over time, this particular mantra, the Savitri Gayatri, gained more and more prestige and prominence until it reached a point that all twice-born males were supposed to recite this mantra at least 3 times a day, at sunrise, at sun zenith, and at sunset. So when the sun is midway between sunrise and sunset, and at sunrise and sunset, 3 times a day, all twice-born males are supposed to recite this mantra. What's a twice-born male? It's a member of Vedic society who has undergone the initiation called Upanayana Samskara. And that means essentially, technically, to put it in caste terms, which I hate to do, Brahmin, Kshatriya, and Vaishya males were qualified, and if they took initiation, were obligated to do this practice, amongst others, of this daily recitation, thrice daily recitation of the Gayatri, Savitri Gayatri. And so for a long time in Indian history, this was a patriarchal mantra, in the sense that it was for men, not women, to recite. And what's happened in the 20th century in India is quite remarkable, in the sense that the holders of religious practice, the holders of the tradition, have become the women almost entirely. So in modern India, since men are supposed to, work, and work means work at a Western style job, right? All over India, you see everywhere except Kerala, men wear button-down shirts and slacks, and if they can get a Western job, Western style job, that's what they're working at. And it's left to the women, as it were, to preserve the tradition insofar as it is preserved, which is really not very much compared to how much was there before. But still, what is preserved is held by the women. And so probably more women today are reciting the Gayatri than men. And since India has, over 1 billion people now, I like to think they're making up for lost time, because for some millennia of a much smaller population, only the men were doing the mantras, and now it's more women, but there's a lot of them. So maybe it's equalizing fast. That's what I like to imagine, being a bit of a feminist. Anyway, so part of the reason, of course, I gravitate to the Tantric tradition as opposed to the Vedic tradition is that it is not patriarchal. But anyway, this formerly patriarchal mantra being reclaimed, just a little bit about the historical background here, and you hear it all over India and sung in kind of Hindi pop song versions by women frequently. Okay, so what is the mantra? First of all, let's understand the Gayatri form. Gayatri means, it's a meter. It means 3 lines of 8 syllables each, right? So, Tat Saviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat. So I just counted 3 times 8. Okay, 3 times 8 is the Gayatri form. 3 lines, 8 syllables each. That's what makes it a Gayatri. And it's Savitri Gayatri because, again, of the deity, Savitar. Now, later in the Indian tradition, we get a proliferation of Gayatris, a Gayatri for every single deity, all the way up until, I don't know, like 1800. So the only deities that don't have Gayatris are deities that are parvenus, that are Johnny-come-latelys. Like Hanuman has only been a deity for a couple hundred years now, so he doesn't have his own Gayatri. Well, I think somebody has made one for him now, but anyway, so most of the deities have Gayatris, and their form is slightly different from the super ancient one. So, for example, the Rudra Gayatri, which is also very ancient, it's probably over 2,000 years old, but young compared to Savitri. Rudra Gayatri goes, Om Tat Purushaya Vidmahe Mahadevaya Dhimahi Tanno Rudra Prachodayata. Whereas, let's say, for example, Ganesh Gayatri, even younger, probably 1,200, 1,300 years old, goes Om Ekadantaya Vidmahe Vakartundaya Dhimahi Tanno Danti Prachodayata. And there's a Gayatri for each deity in that way. And the form is preserved, 8 syllables, 3 lines of 8 syllables each. And the same verbs are always used, at least 2 out of 3 of the same verbs. Dhimahi, Vidmahe, Dhimahi, Prachodayat. Those 3 verbs terminate the 3 lines of the Gayatri, except in the oldest one, where only 2 of those verbs are used. So that became a standard form. So the Gayatri form is like a container into which any content can be poured, any divine content, that is, any specific deity. In some other class, we'll talk about what the heck a deity actually is. There's no time for that now. But so now, prefaced to this mantra beginning Tat Savitur Varenyam, we get these special syllables, so I'll break those down. Om, Bhur, Bhuvaha, Swaha. So Om, originally in ancient times, you would preface a mantra with Om only if you were a Brahmin, of Brahmin caste, but later, by the medieval period, that just, everybody was using Om. So Om literally means yes, or so be it, or amen, or aho, or hallelujah, but really it's a particle of assent. Om is in the deepest spiritual sense, Om is the granting of the heart's consent to the whole of reality, to the whole universe as a manifestation of the divine. Om, yes, I say yes to this life. I say yes to this world, even with all its challenges and difficulties. That's the resonance of Om, is this powerful affirmation. But Om is used to literally mean yes in Sanskrit drama. There is no other word for yes in Sanskrit. So if the king says to his courtier, please go and do this thing, and the courtier will go, Om, meaning so be it, or yes, I will. So it has a spiritual meaning, but it's also has an everyday, everyday meaning. I say everyday, of course, only if you're a highly educated person would you be speaking Sanskrit, even in the ancient world. So Om, Bhur means earth, just that, just earth. Prithivi, earth, the earth, and earth in general. Bhuvaha, atmosphere, the atmosphere, the whole atmospheric region and all. So the implication is beings too. The earth and all its beings, the atmosphere and all its beings, seen and unseen. And Swaha, the heavens, the heavenly realms, that which is beyond the atmosphere, is the heavenly realms, so it's kind of cool and weird that they somehow knew back then that the atmosphere ended, and then there was something else. But the heavenly realms, that the space in which the stars and sun and moon all exist beyond the atmosphere, and all the beings of those realms, that's the Swaha. Okay. So this invocation right at the beginning, yes, earth, atmosphere, heaven, and all the beings and all of them, that is the whole of reality, because in the early Vedic period they did not have a sense of an underworld. They did not yet have that idea of the underworld or hell realms or subterranean paradises, for that matter. None of that was there yet in the early period, but it did come along later, the idea of subterranean realms, both paradises and infernal regions, various kinds. But here in the early Rig Veda, the three worlds are earth, atmosphere, and heavens. That was the orientation of the Vedic peoples, right? Transcendence is, the divine is here on earth, but it's even more up there. And the heavenly realms are the most divine. And that's where you go when you die, if you're lucky. Because of course the doctrine of reincarnation came in and all that stuff, but still you can go and spend some time in the heavenly realms before you come back to earth. So that's the background a little bit. Om Bhur Bhuvaha Swaha. And when I recite the mantra, I like to kind of look at each of the three as I'm saying them and affirm my love for and acceptance of these three realms. Then the mantra proper begins. Tat Savitur Varenyam, that's the first line. Tat means that. Very simple. It's etymologically related to the English word that. Tat. And the same word is in other Indo-European languages all over. Savitur. Savitur is the genitive singular, the sixth case singular, for anyone who might happen to know that terminology, the Shashti Vibhakti Ekavachana form of Savitur, the deity of the rising sun, whose name literally means the vivifier or the rejuvenator. So this is, so the name of the deity is literally the vivifier or rejuvenator. And so again, his name, Savitur, here is in the sixth case. That means the case of possession. Case, what is case? If you know Latin or Greek, you understand case already. It means that in Sanskrit, every noun has a whole bunch of different forms depending on how it's used in the sentence. So I'll just give a super quick breakdown. We'll go into this more in future classes. So the word God, deva, if it's the subject of the sentence, appears as devaha. If it's the direct object of the sentence, appears as devam. If it is the instrument of the action of the verb of the sentence, it appears as devena. If it is the indirect object of the verb or the reason the action is done, it appears as devaya. If it is the source from which the action of the verb proceeds, it appears as devat. If it is the possessor of the subject of the sentence, it appears as devasya. If it is the location, if it is that which is being alluded to, or the location of the action, then it appears as deve. And if you're calling out to God and saying, "Oh God," it appears as deva. So the same as the stem form. So there's 8 forms, and this is just in the singular, right? There's also plural we're not talking about. In the singular, there's 8 forms of each noun, and they follow a pattern. So that's why they're memorizable. Not that each noun is completely different from every other noun. So it's the same if I'm talking about a guy named Rama. If he's the subject of the sentence, it appears as Ramaha. If he's the object, it appears as Ramam, and so on and so forth. So I know you didn't follow that except in the most vague, general possible way, but the point is, you see, and there's a point here, because like mantra, like Om Namah Shivaya. Why is it Shivaya? It's Shiva being referenced there. Reverence to God. Om Namah Shivaya means, yes, reverence to God. God in the form of Shiva, or Shiva as a name of God, but it appears as Shivaya because reverence is being given to God. So Shiva appears in the form Shivaya, you see? So every noun has these forms, and in English, we determine the role of the word in the sentence by its position. In Sanskrit, you determine the role of the word in the sentence by its ending. Same as Latin, same as Greek. So let me just make this super clear if I can, which is in English, if you say dog bit man, the dog bit the man, you know who did the biting and who got bit by the position of the words. Dog comes first, so it's the one doing the action. Man comes last, so it's the one receiving the action. But this is not how ancient languages work in general, especially Sanskrit, Latin, and Greek, which are all related. There, the ending tells you who did the biting and who got bit. So, dogus bit manum, that's adding Latin endings to English words. Dogus bit manum means dog bit the man, but if I say manum bit dogus, it means the exact same thing. It doesn't matter what the word order is because the ending tells you the function of the word. So, manum bit dogus means the dog bit the man, because the us ending on dog tells us it's the subject of the sentence. And by the way, it's the same endings in Sanskrit. That's how closely related. Us for subject, for object. So you see where it's going? So if I say Manas bit dogum, that means the man bit the dog. And if I say dogum bit Manas, that also means the man bit the dog. Okay, so this is to just hammer into your brains that word order doesn't matter, endings matter. Okay, so back to the point. Tat savitur, that rejuvenator, that vivifier. But savitur in the genitive case, the possessive case there, we don't, so the direct object of the sentence is not that, but something else that's still to come in the next line. So, tat savitur varenyam. Varenyam is a kind of special Vedic word that's like it's a superlative, the most beautiful, the most beautiful, from a root meaning to choose, because like at the supermarket they say choice meats or choice vegetables, meaning the best ones. In the same way, there's a relationship between the word choice and the idea of best. So from the root word vara, choice, varenyam, the best, most beautiful, right? By the way, in ancient Vedic hymns, whichever deity you're praising is the most beautiful. Whichever one you're talking to, that's the most beautiful. Okay, it's a bit of a sycophantic religion in that sense. So varenyam, there's that E or A vowel is prolated, which means it has an extra beat. It's extra long. That's an unusual thing. You usually don't get that in Sanskrit mantras, but so it's technically E with a line over it. I'll write it on our group page. E with a line over it, meaning an extra long A vowel, which makes it fit the meter. If you don't do that, it doesn't fit the meter. So watch my fingers here. Tat savitur varenyam. 8 syllables, you need an extra long E there, which is permitted by the grammar. So that's why you'll hear Brahmins recite it like this. Tat savitur varenyam. They make sure to really indicate there's an extra syllable there. Varenyam. Now, when you're singing more melodically, you just drag it out a little bit, and people don't even notice. Really, there's an extra beat, like when Tina Malia sings Tat savitur varenyam. The extra syllable is there, but you don't notice because it's in a melody, So she goes, Om Bhurbuvaha Swaha Tat Savitur Varenyam, which is very pretty, whereas traditional Brahminical recitation is not pretty. It's like Om Bhurbuvaha Swaha Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayata. Sounds like that pretty much. And they do it as fast as humanly possible because they're usually doing it a lot of times. Okay, next line. Bhargo devasya dhimahi. So the verb is at the end, dhimahi. May we meditate on, may we think about, may we contemplate, may we consider. So di relates to the mind or intellect. Mahi is a third person plural verbal ending. Dhimahi, may we think on or meditate on or contemplate or consider. What is it that we should consider? The object of the verb is bhargo, which means radiance, luster, magnificence. Okay, so may we consider or meditate on the magnificence. Whose magnificence? Remember, the possessive word, savitur, in the first line was in the possessive case. It's savitur's magnificence. Now the meaning is coming together, right? This is how Sanskrit works. You don't know what's going on until you get to until there's enough information, So may we meditate on or contemplate the bhargo, the magnificence. That's a neuter noun in the direct object case, of savitur, of that rejuvenator, who is a deity. Devasya is God, Deva, in the genitive or possessive case, matching. It's matching savitur. So they are matching in case, number, gender. So we have agreement. Are you familiar with agreement from like Spanish or French? You've got agreement of the noun and the adjective, right? That's a very simple form of agreement, right? So, for example, if something is red in Spanish, rojo, but it's only rojo if it's agreeing with a masculine noun, and it's roja if it's agreeing with a feminine noun. You see, it helps if you just know any other language. If you only know English, this is going to be harder. But so the adjectives in Spanish or French change their ending to match the noun masculine or feminine. You see? So that's called agreement. Agreement's super important in Sanskrit. There's a lot more agreement happening. That's how you know what goes with what. So devasya in the sixth case is matching savitur in the sixth case. So we know they go together. And here it's God is like functioning almost as an adjective, the God savitur, you know. So now we have a sentence. May we meditate on or contemplate the magnificence of the God savitur, of the deity, or want to translate better, it might be of the deity or of the divinity, of the vivifying divinity or of the rejuvenating divinity or of the deity, savitur, however you want to translate it. But savitur does have that sense of enlivening us, right? The rising sun enlivens our spirit. So then we're left with the third and last line, Dio yo na prachodayat. Okay, so let's go to the verb at the end. Verb is always at the end in Sanskrit. If it possibly can be, it goes at the end. It doesn't have to, but it usually is. Just like in German, verbs go at the end. So that's why you don't know what's going on until the end of the sentence is spoken in German too. So what's prachodayat? It means well, from the root prachud, to impel, to move something forward. Prachodayat, may it be moved forward, may it be impelled. May what be impelled? Dio, our mind or wisdom or intellect. Whose mind or wisdom or intellect? Naha, N-A-H, on its own pronounced naha, our mind, wisdom, or intellect. Okay, so by the way, you know, if this is all going too fast, you just review the recording and pause frequently, right? But anyway, here's the simple thing. There's a little relative correlative thing going on here. So dio, mind, intellect, or wisdom. Yo means which. So literally, it's that mind or intellect or wisdom which is of us, naha, which is ours. So the thing is, you just don't need the word which in English, so it sounds confusing. You know, that mind which is ours. You just, in English, you just say our mind. You see? So you don't need that word, but it's there in the Sanskrit. That dio, mind, yo, which, naha, our, of us. Somebody needs to mute themselves. Everyone check that they are muted. Because if anyone's unmuted, then oh, there we go. Okay, I think I got you. Okay, everyone's muted. So, dioyo na prachodayat. May, total meaning of the sentence, as breaking it down word by word, but the total meaning is, may our mind be impelled. May our mind be impelled forward. May our mind be impelled, like given energy. Do you know what I mean? It's the opposite of stagnation. May our mind or intellect or wisdom be impelled, be given a boost of energy that moves it forward on its journey. Who's giving it the boost of energy? Obviously, Savitur, the energy of the rising sun. May it impel us forward on our path. May it impel our wisdom, specifically, our dio, our wisdom or intellect or something like that. Okay, so dio yo naf prachodayat. The last piece of information is that almost everyone who's doing this mantra is pronouncing it wrong, because in Vedic Sanskrit, which is a little different from classical Sanskrit, which most people don't know, in Vedic Sanskrit you pronounce the NAH when it appears before a P. The H sound acquires almost the character of an F sound, only in Vedic Sanskrit and only before a P. Yes, that's correct. Only before a P. So instead of, you're going to have to look at my lips here. Instead of na, most people are saying na prachodayat, but it's actually naf prachodayat, naf. It's just like an F, but using only the lips. So linguists call this a bilabial fricative. So instead of, again, watch my lips, instead of an F like this, F, teeth and lips, it's an F with lips and lips, only lips. Naf prachodayat. So watch me say the whole line. Dhyo yo naf prachodayat. So it's very brief. You barely hear it. But it also means that if you're singing, you can't really have a long pause between naf and prachodayat because it's the P that's making the H sound like an F. Yeah, so if you want to keep going with the Sanskrit thing, in a few years, this will all make total sense. Just takes patience, okay? So, dhyo yo naf prachodayat. Okay, so that's the mantra. Om bhur-bhuvah swaha tat-savitur varenyam bhargo devasya dhimahi dhiyo yo nah prachodayata. That's one traditional way of reciting it, and a mantra should always be said in a single breath. Okay, so if you're at all traditional. So the modern melodic ways of singing it are beautiful and they inspire devotion, but technically it should all be in one breath. So Skylar asks about the verb prachodayat, which ends the mantra. Is that a kind of subjunctive? No, it's actually an optative. Prachodayat, optative, we should, or it should be impelled, right? Optative means should or could or would, except in Sanskrit, the use of the optative is very loose, and it can also mean it will happen, or it may happen, or may it happen. So optative or optative, some people pronounce, is a very flexible verb form. So may it be, it could, would, or should be impelled. May it be impelled. Specifically, again, the intellect or mind or wisdom, may that be impelled. Whose? Ours. May our mind, intellect, or wisdom be impelled forward. So it's it's optative. Optative is optative a mood or a tense? I don't even remember. I think it's a mood. I don't know. I don't remember all the grammatical terms in English. In fact, we were drilled in Sanskrit grammatical terms by Robert Goldman, and it can all get mixed up in one's head. Some things I know English and some things I know Sanskrit grammatical terms. Let's move on. Any other questions on the Savitri Gāyatrī mantra from the Rig Veda? I said it's the oldest mantra in continuous use, and indeed, scholars are quite confident that it has been in continuous daily use for that whole time, since at least 1500 BC, all the way up till now, and it shows no signs of slowing down now. So who knows how long it will continue. But technically, yes, if you want to do a traditional practice, for those who amongst you who just are inclined to traditionalism like me, so you face the rising sun, and as it just before, but especially just as it's peeking over the horizon, you're doing the mantra, and you pour some water in your hand. You put some water in your hand, and you offer that water. You pour it so it falls onto the ground as you're saying the mantra. You're offering the water to the sun. The earth is receiving it on his behalf. But you're doing a water offering, a libation to the sun as it rises and singing to it. And then you sing it down at the end of the day as well. And it's quite beautiful, So what I like to do, Alicia says, with a flower too. That's a much later kind of addition to the ritual. The more ancient form is just water. I like to do the Savitri Gayatri and then the one or more of the tantric Gayatris. And for those who are into Shaivism, the religion of Shiva Shakti, it's nice to do. You can actually kind of briefly, mantrically map the history of the whole tradition by doing Savitri Gayatri, the Vedic phase, and then Rudra Gayatri, which is pre-tantric. It's the main mantra of pre-tantric Shaivism. Tat Purushaya Vidmahe Mahadevaya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo. So now I'm confusing that. Tat Purushaya Vidmahe Mahadevaya Dhimahi Tanno Rudra Prachodayat. That is the main mantra of pre-tantric Shaivism. And then we have a tantric Shaiva mantra that came after that, which is Om Tan Maheshaya Vidmahe Vag Vishuddhaya Dhimahi Tanna Shiva Prachodayat. So in those three mantras, you actually have the whole history of the tradition in from its Vedic, polytheistic Vedic phase to its monotheistic pre-tantric phase to its non-dualistic or pantheistic tantric phase in those three mantras, because each are the most important of each phase. From the Shaiva perspective, right? From the Vaishnava perspective, you'd have different mantras in the second and third position. And I will put those mantras in the group with proper writing. And certainly at noon too, but if you can only do 2 times, you do sunrise and sunset. If you can only do 1 time, you do sunrise traditionally. Okay, so we've spent half the class on that one mantra, but that's okay. My method is to be thorough, and it's traditional also to be thorough. And can't tell you how many times I read Sanskrit with an Indian scholar, and we would spend weeks on 2 pages of Sanskrit. Okay, but moving on now. Manoj says, can you talk about that final T in Prachodayat? Is there a halant or a virama there? Yes, it is a terminal T with no vowel after it, except in Brahminical recitation for at least 2,000 years now, there has been a vowel sound added after the T for stylistic reasons, I guess. But here's the thing. In my philosophy, I don't engage in artificial revivalism, meaning to say, just because I know that it was originally pronounced Prachodayat, I'm going to follow a living tradition, right? And so every single Brahmin priest in India that I know of, every single one I've heard in every region of India, says Prachodayat, so in the other Gayatris too. Ekadantaya vidmahe vakratundaya dhimahi tanno danti prachodayat. Like that. So a little after the T is Brahminical tradition. Even though linguistically doesn't make sense, and metrically it doesn't make sense. It's not required by the meter, but it's living tradition. So there's something important there. For a tantrika, especially, lineage is important. You don't, you stick with what comes to you through lineage. Lineage in tantra, lineage trumps everything. Yes, so definitely. I might have said it without the because we were breaking down the language of it, right? But in recitation, you definitely, Om Bhurvubhasvaha Tatsavitu Varenyam Bhargo Devasi Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat, like that. Okay. Moving on to the alphabet. So we've been swimming around in the deep end. Now let's go to the shallow end. So if anyone feels totally overwhelmed and I could never possibly learn Sanskrit, that is how you're supposed to feel right now. You are in the perfect place. And let's just go back to the shallow end so you can feel like you can catch your breath. Okay, shallow end, alphabet. We'll go through the alphabet carefully, slowly. We'll probably go through the alphabet this class and next class. First sound of the alphabet. Now, in the alphabet, we don't have letters. We have phonemes. We have syllables. So the Sanskrit alphabet is referred to as a syllabary because it's always syllables, right? So really, the first syllable of the alphabet is the sound Now, the Sanskrit syllabary or alphabet is organized in the most logical way possible. Why? Because the very first linguists in human history who lived over 2,500 years ago were Indian and were Sanskritists. So linguistics was invented by scholars of Sanskrit language and speakers of the Sanskrit language. And I mean that literally. So the words that we have in English, noun, adjective, verb, adverb, those concepts were invented by Sanskrit scholars, right? It's a self-consciousness that most ancient people didn't have. They didn't have the self-consciousness to describe their language and invent a special language to talk about language with, you see, because words like noun, adjective, adverb, pronoun, and so on, those are special words invented to talk about language. So they constitute a meta language. And that meta language was first created by Sanskritists in the lineage of Panini, 2,800 years ago. So that is also why the organization of the alphabet is in the super logical linguistic order, because the people who put it in that order were linguists, the very first linguists. Okay, so the first vowel is the simplest vowel. It's the simplest vowel in any language, not just Sanskrit, and it's this vowel which we might, phonetically write as UH for English speakers only. UH. It's the simplest sound ever. It's kind of like a schwa sound, what English calls a schwa sound. It's just so you can't mess it up. You open your mouth and push some air through it. Okay. But it's also considered the basis and root of all the other sounds, because all the other sounds contain because is just opening the mouth a little bit and letting some air move across the vocal cords with no modification in the vocal tract. So it's the simple basis of all language, and presumably, possibly, the first attempt at human language was probably with that sound. Some caveman pointed at some other cavemen and went, probably. That would have been, about 70,000 years ago when sounds started becoming language, or 80,000, it depends who you ask. Okay, so maybe 100,000. Anyway, back to the point. The second sound of the language is ah. So I'll just type in the chat window the difference between, in transliteration, of course. I can't type in Devanagari, I'm afraid. So the first sound is represented in Latin letters. I said English, really the Latin alphabet. The first sound is represented by the letter A, but pronounced The second sound is where you just open the mouth a little more and you just let the vowel just go So let's give some sample words. The vowel as in anuttara. I'm typing in the chat window. If you're on the computer, if you're on the phone, you just can't see this. So sorry. If you're in the computer, you can click chat, the chat button on the bottom of your screen. So as in anuttara. It has 3 us in it, beginning, middle, and end. Anuttara. And that means the absolute, or the transcendent, or that higher than which there is nothing. And I could go off, I won't go off, but anuttara, there's a little argument there about how in Indian culture, The argument is everyone believes in God or the absolute. They just disagree about what it is. So anuttara means that higher than which there is nothing. So if you think the ultimate principle of the universe is chaos and randomness, that is your anuttara. If you think the ultimate principle of the universe is love, that is your anuttara. That's the anuttara for you. And maybe in actuality it's the anuttara, but it's all, speculation from the point of view of the human mind. What's the anuttara? Is it love? Is it randomness? Is it economics? Is it radical freedom? And there's a deity for each anuttara, you see? So whatever you think the absolute is, the governing principle of reality, that's the anuttara, and there's a deity for each of those possible principles, okay? So usually, if you think love is the absolute, you're into Krishna. If you think freedom is the absolute, you're into Shiva. If you think economics is the absolute, you're into Lakshmi, and so on and so forth, okay? If you think random chaos is the absolute, your deity is Niritti. Probably never heard of Niritti before. He's not very popular in India. But he's there. He's got temples. I've been to one. So even the atheists who think random chaos is the governing principle of the universe, they don't get to be atheist in India. They worship Niritti whether they know it or not. Okay, so moving on. That's my little rant about that. Moving on. No. Yeah, so let me type Niritti. Niritti actually is interesting because Niritti has been a goddess and a god, a masculine or a feminine deity in different times and places. Anyway, so Galit asks, I don't know if I'm saying your name right, Galit, but she asks, is it anu as in anugraha? No. It's not the prefix anu joined to tada. It's an, an is the prefix joined to uttara. So uttara is higher or highest. In this, it's actually higher. So that higher than which there is nothing, which is also a definition of God in Western theology too. That higher, uttara, higher than which there is nothing. So uttara, where the sound un is just like the English prefix un spelled un. It's pronounced the same. Notice you hear the difference in you hear the similarities in Indo-European languages much more if you ignore spelling. So un means a negator. Anuttara. That higher than which there is nothing. Our word for the second vowel sound is ananda. This is a good word because most people say it wrong. English speakers say ananda. Wrong. Yes, there is right and wrong in Sanskrit pronunciation. This is not a relativistic language. It is actually wrong to say ananda. Hippies and New Agers, they hate this idea. They're like, well, that's how I pronounce it. No, it's wrong. Sorry. So ananda. Now, here's the beautiful part. Ah is the vowel. And doesn't it sound like ananda, bliss, joy, joyousness, right? Ananda. Doesn't that sound more like it than ananda? Ananda, We even make that sound when we're happy. We go, and there's the sound. That's the vowel, ananda. So whenever you see a line over the vowel, this is why you have to have these lines, because otherwise you don't know the pronunciation. It's a longer vowel. It's exactly twice as long as ah. So if you want to know the technical details, one finger snap. 2 finger snaps, if you can snap fast, that is. Okay? So anuttara, ananda, 2 finger snaps. Got it? So you should be saying these I can't hear you, but you should be saying these to yourself as I'm saying them, the words and the syllables and So Okay? And these vowels come from the back of the throat forward, they're considered to be velar vowels, meaning they come from the velum, which is the back of the throat. Then we have the two vowels e, e. There they are, right? E, e. They're the same sound, unlike ah, which is a bit of a different sound because ah is a wider mouth, opener mouth. Ah, wider mouth. E is the exact same sound, but just longer. One finger snap, two finger snaps. E, e. Okay, exact same sound. Although you'll hear some Sanskritists say e. That's technically wrong, but it's common. Okay, so what's our sample word? Icha. Short I, but a long A at the end. Icha, which means the power of will or inspiration. Icha. And what about our long I word? By the way, the words I'm choosing are not random. They're all Abhinavagupta's words that he uses in breaking down the alphabet in his 1,000-year-old work on linguistic mysticism. So for E, he has Ishana. Let me check. Some people get this bizarre idea that I don't make mistakes, but I do. But the key is that you got to know when you're not sure. You got to know when you don't know. Then you're golden. But if you don't know when you don't know, you're screwed. So, okay, so the word occurs in both forms. I'm just looking in my dictionary. Ishana, commanding, but the one I actually had in mind was Ishana, the Lord, ruler, master. It's a word named for God. Microphone problem. Can you hear me now? Testing, 1, 2, 3. Sorry, I was looking up in the dictionary. Can you hear me now? Testing, 1, 2, 3. I was looking up in the dictionary the spelling and correcting the spelling, even though Ishana is a word, a valid word, but I actually want the word Ishana. Okay, I'm going to take off the headphones and see if it's better. Testing, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Is that better? Hi, Ananya. Is that better? Can you hear me better than the other way? Okay, good. So the word for E is Ishana, lordship or sovereignty, or lord or ruler or master. Just like in English, people say the Lord, meaning God. Ishana is like that. Okay, so e. Then we get oo, and they are exactly, again, the same sound, just one is longer than the other. So again, one finger snap, two finger snaps. Ooh. Same exact sound though. Okay? And in terms of the order, the logical linguistic order, we're moving from the back of the mouth to the front. So we're coming from the back of the throat. E are in the middle. They're palatal vowels. And oo are at the lips. They're labial vowels. Ooh. So there's a logical progression, and always in Sanskrit from back to front. Yeah, by the way, Ben, Ishana, Ishwara, same thing. Okay, so ooh, labial vowels. So what's our sample word? Unmesha, unfolding, opening up, blossoming. Beautiful, beautiful word. The same word in Sanskrit means opening the eyes and a flower blossoming. Unmesha. So it's not quite translatable, you know. The opening up of the eyes, the opening up of a flower, the blossoming or blooming of a flower, the unfolding of anything that's furled up in itself and then unfolds, opens up and out. That's unmesha. And then for the long U, we'll have the word urmi. Urmi. Sorry about the sound going in and out. I don't know what else I could do to improve it. Urmi means wave. Ah, cool. So Galit's Sanskrit name is Urmi. Seems to happen. I'll try not to touch the computer then. Okay, so Urmi, wave. Just means wave, but it can be used metaphorically, a metaphorical wave as well. So I, u, u. Then we get vowels, some vowels which are a little bit more confusing for the English speaker. Gosh, I'm not sure how do you type this one? Let's see. I'm gonna find it. There it is. So the vowel those are two vowels again, the long and short. So it's somewhat similar. It's sort of similar to the vowel sound in the English word bird, but it's not quite like that, because with this particular vowel, you guys, it's an R sound with a vowel all through it, a vowel at the beginning, middle, and end. So let's just use the sample word Krishna for now, and then I'll give you also a word that begins with this letter. So that's how you spell, in proper scholarly transliteration, that's how you spell Krishna. Now notice, I want you to notice, it's not Krishna, it's not Krishna with an I, right? So it's not Krishna, it's not Krushna, it's in between all three. So if we draw a triangle with one of the vertices of the triangle is Krishna, and one is Krishna, and one is Krushna, it's right in the middle. Krishna. So it's actually pretty simple. If you don't overthink it, you'll probably say it right. Krishna. Krishna. Okay, and now let's do a word beginning with this letter. The word Rigveda, right? Rigveda. So before, just so you would recognize the word, I was saying Rigveda. That's an anglicization, right? It's not actually Rigveda, it's Rigveda. So again, if I did a triangle, one vertex is Urgveda, one is Rigveda, and one is Rugveda. It's in the middle of all three. Urgveda. Again, don't overthink it, and you'll probably do it right. So this is called the vocalic R, the vowel R. It always has a dot underneath unless it's not being written correctly. Of course, you see the spelling Krishna like that. And most English speakers are actually pronouncing it right, because when they see that, they don't go Krishna, they go Krishna, which is very, 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 very close to being exactly right. So, but technically it should have a dot underneath. It's the vowel R as opposed to the consonant R. The consonant R has no dot underneath and is pronounced just like Spanish, like in the word para. See, I'm pronouncing it like a Spanish R, para. That is the consonant R. We're talking about the vowel R. So, and the long form is as in the Southern American pronunciation of the word pretty, which they say down south, purdy. She's mighty purdy. Sound. Okay. So then that sound almost never occurs, and it certainly never initiates a word, but it occurs in plural form, the plural accusative form of mothers. So, in that word there, mater, 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 right? But Hindi speakers will say matri. So don't get confused, by the way. People in India tend to have the idea that if they pronounce Sanskrit like their native tongue, they're pronouncing it right, but they're wrong. So Hindi speakers will correct your pronunciation of Sanskrit to make it more Hindiized, but they don't actually know, unless they went to university and got a degree in Sanskrit and studied the Pratishakyas, the texts on pronunciation of Sanskrit in Sanskrit, then they don't know what they're talking about. Okay, they just assume there's the cultural thing is like the citizen of India always assumes he or she knows more than a person who's not, or who has a Caucasian appearance, which I'm not going to blame them for that. But anyway, so it's not the Hindiized form that people will say, ri, or like this word here, they'll say matrihi, like that. So it's mater. That sound almost never appears again. So anyway, so the vowels a, I, u, and Marathi speakers will say for they'll say ru, like that. So in that hymn I sang in the first class, you'll hear Marathi speakers say ho at the end of this vowel is at the end of the line, ho ter, and you'll hear them say ho tru. Anyway, there's some variation. Finally, we get the vowel o. It's L with a dot under it. It's pronounced o. And it's the same, almost exactly the same as in the English word bottle. Bottle. After the T sound, there's an O sound. Notice that's a completely different L from the L in lake. Totally different sound. The mouth is doing a different thing. Bottle. O. You don't need to worry about this vowel too much because it only occurs in a single word. And that word is pulp. There it is. And I love some of your gestures. Kulp. Kulp. Kulp is a verbal root it is the basis of the word vikalpa, correct? But the sound O is not in vikalpa. That's a normal L in vikalpa. O is the sound in the root of vikalpa, which is kulp. The only place I've ever seen this vowel ever occur is in the Rudram. Some of you know the Rudram or Shatarudriya, which is has a line in there where it says Kulptamshchame, Kulptishchame. Never seen it anywhere else. So rare. It's incredibly rare. Kulp means to divide or arrange. So vikalpa, analytical thought, right? To divide up and label things, chop the world up into bits. Okay, so o, a, I, u, o. Those are all the so-called simple vowels. Simple vowels. Swara means vowel. Swara means sound also. Just simple sounds, simple vowels. Then we have the diphthongs, are so-called complex vowels. Okay, and these are a, I, o, au. Yes, there's only one length of o vowel. But going back a second to a question, there's not o, right? Because there's not. But linguists, Sanskrit linguists have sometimes put it in there just to be completist, even though it never occurs in any word ever. So it's an academic kind of thing that they're to have a o long vowel o. So yeah, only one. So moving on to the diphthongs. These diphthongs are where you take two vowels and you squeeze them together very, very tightly. And these are a, I, o, au. So let's see, what vowels are we squeezing together very tightly to make these sounds? There's the first one for you. A plus E. When you squeeze them together really tight, makes a. So if you can actually feel this in your own mouth. Make the sound and then E. 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 And then go a. You see how it's the same movement, a little bit of movement in your mouth from to E, a. Except that in Sanskrit, you don't actually say a. You say it as one tight sound. You really squeeze them together. One tight sound, a, right? Not a. Like English speakers say way, like the word way, or pay or stay. There's what's called an off glide. The diphthong comes apart a little bit. Stay. You hear that? Whereas in Sanskrit, it would be stay, way, pay. And that's part of what makes an Indian accent sound Indian, is the diphthong a stays tight together. A, no glide. So a, the sound is a, as in, I don't have a prepared sample word from this. What should we use? How about something simple? Eka, one. Eka. Not the same as in egg, but because that's a short sound. We don't have that sound in Sanskrit. But like fade, yeah, similar to fade. Eka, one. Now, if you pull the diphthong apart a little bit, or a more accurate way in Sanskrit to describe it would be this: a plus e equals I. I've typed it in the window. A plus e is I. So as in the word Aishwarya, sovereignty. Aishwarya, I. It's just like in English sky or pie, but again, in English there's off glide. They pull apart. Sky. You hear that? They kind of, it's just, yeah, like that. Pie. Here it's I. It's tighter. It's a little tighter. It's not as tight as an A where they're fused completely, but it's tighter than in English. So Aishwarya. I'm sure the recording is getting the sound, even if it's fading in and out for you guys. Okay, when I touch the computer, it goes away. That's very strange. This has never happened. So I, as in Aishwarya. So if you were saying English words with this different pronunciation, it would be like saying sky, hi, pai. Okay? So then, and indeed, that's why an Indian speaker who's not fluent in English would say sky. Look up at the sky, Aishwarya, sovereignty, lordship, dominion. It's a yogic virtue to have self sovereignty, sovereignty over yourself, self control, self possession. Yeah, sovereignty, Aishwarya. Okay, so A, I, those vowels. Now, but following the exact same pattern. Now wait while I type. I'm compensating for the sound. I won't talk while I type. So plus u is o. So again, in your own mouth, feel it. Go u, then go o, o. If you're looking at the screen, you can't even see the difference. U, o. So linguistically, and u fused together in a diphthong makes o. But again, see, I failed to type it. Okay, let me try again. There we go. Oh, but again in Sanskrit, it's tight, not like in English, where people say, I don't know, stow, stow it here, stow. It's just oh. There's no off glide. So not like toe, English word toe, but as if you were to say toe, right? Tight. It stays the same sound all the way through. That's another way to say it. Instead of toe, which gets more U-y at the end, it's toe, right? So, yes, so like toe or no, but tighter diphthong, as if you were to pronounce toe or no, right? So let's get a sample word. Ojas, vitality, life force, vigor, juice. Ojas has different meanings. Ojas. You know, in Ayurveda, they kind of have this theory. You've got these 6 drops of ojas in your heart, and they're like lives in a video game. You lose one, and then when you lose all 6, you die. Sort of the simplified Ayurvedic theory. 6 drops of ojas, all you get. If you use them up, you're gone. So burnout is a problem in Ayurvedic, you know, because if you hit burnout, if you really hit a wall, you've just lost a drop of ojas. Okay, so yeah. So then so plus u is ow. So it's the kind of expanded form of o is ow. See how it's very similar in the mouth. O, ow. Very, very similar movement. Ow. So ow, as in English now, but tighter. Again, a little bit tighter. Now, pronounced no, right? As in, as in ouch. See, that's tighter than now. Ouch. Outsukya. Sanskrit word, outsukya. How do I translate that? So outsukya means eagerness, longing. It could mean anxiety. It's one of those words that can be both positive and negative. So longing, like sweet longing, pining, yearning, or also anxiety. Could also be fervor, outsukya. Outsukya. So that's all the vowels. Then there's 2 vowel modifications we'll discuss next time. And the vowel modifications are written like this. So we'll talk about it next time, but when they stand on their own, they're just pronounced and aha. But you see the has a dot under it, and the H has a dot under it. So on their own, they're pronounced and aha. These are vowel modifications. They're complicated. We'll talk about them next time. But the first of the vowel modifications is called anuswara, meaning literally following a vowel. And the second is called visarga, meaning puff of air. Visarga is literally an ejection or ejaculation of air. So or aha. I've written them there under outsukya. Aha. So if you're listing, I just mentioned them because if you list all the vowels, you have to include them. Traditionally, you include them. Okay. So Schuyler says Y is not considered a vowel even though it acts like one. Yes and no. I mean, it's called a semi-vowel in Sanskrit. There's 4 semi-vowels: ya, ra, la, va, yara, la, va. And linguistically, it's not considered a vowel by linguists either. It's considered, what's the technical name for it? I've forgotten. Too bad Shivani Ugran's not here. She could tell us probably. But so ya, it's a palatal semi-vowel in Sanskrit. And Peter asks, can you explain the construction of om versus aum, and which is proper transliteration? That's a deep question. Om, om is correct, okay? But when you're doing a special tantric practice called uchara, then om is pronounced aum, okay? So that whole aum thing, which was popularized by the Moody Blues and others in the 60s, like the sacred word, the secret lost chord is aum. But yes, but only in the context of specific tantric mantra practice, where you're basically pulling om apart into its component parts, you see. And I already went over a plus u is o. So when you pull o apart, you get a and u. You see? So when you're doing the special practice, you go, oh. So that's a whole thing that we can talk about later. But it's when you're not doing that special practice, it's just om. O-M spells om. No aum, except for in the context of that special practice called uchara. Okay, so let's review the vowels. A, I, u, o. A, I, o, au. Aha. Okay, so now I'm going to sing them. A, I, u, o. A, I, o, au, aha. Again. A, I, u, o. A, I, o, au, aha. So those are all the vowels and the vowel modifications. A, I, u, o. A, I, o, au, aha. So 15 total, including the vowel modifications. Or in tantric linguistic mysticism, they have 16 vowels because they do include a long O, even though it doesn't actually exist in usage. So you'll see in tantric sources 16 vowels spoken of. That also conveniently matches the 16 parts of the moon. So the moon is said to have 16 kalas or slivers, that correspond to these 16 vowels. So the 16th being the esoteric secret sliver of the moon. 15 observable, and 16th is this esoteric secret sliver of the moon. And that's why another name for the goddess is Shodashi, the 16th. Anyway, that's another thing. Okay, any questions, comments on anything we've covered in the first two classes? And you can unmute yourself to ask a question. You don't have to type it in the window. Be nice to feel there's another voice there somewhere. Oh, there's faces. I see you. Hey, Alicia, nice to see you. Sadly, can't see Claudia, can't see Ananya, can't see Shiva, can't see Manoj, can't see Devi Bhaktananda. But that's okay. If I could see all of you, it would probably crash the software. Oh, now I do. Hey, Claudia. Oh, and I should mention that Claudia here, who's on our call, is a wonderful Jyotishi. That means she reads Vedic astrology charts. Really, they should be called tantric astrology, but everyone says Vedic astrology. So if anyone wants a great Jyotishi, someone who can read Vedic astrology charts accurately, which is quite rare. There's a lot of people who say they can and few who actually can, and Claudia is one of them. So a shout out to her, and I'm proud of her for always learning too. Which book do you recommend? Skylar says, which book do you recommend for verb conjugations, noun declensions, etc.? Maybe Robert Goldman's book, Devavani Praveshika, which means an entryway into the language of the gods. Devavani Praveshika by Robert Goldman. Don't worry about the title. You'll find it. It's the only Sanskrit book by Robert Goldman. He's the only Robert Goldman who wrote a Sanskrit book, if you see what I mean. So you'll find it. Now, I can also send you guys a PDF of all the basic declensions, so that you don't even have to buy anything. Okay. Good. So any other questions? Sean says, I want to listen to more mantras and would love some recommendations for a CD to listen to in the car on long drives. Well, okay. In terms of super Paka pronunciation, Paka means correct, technically matured, well-baked. But super Paka pronunciation is very, very hard to find on CD. I'll show you one here. So this is, can you see that? Nod if you can see it. This is the Bhagavad Gita recited by my friend and colleague, Shri Vivek Godbole. I don't know if you can see his name. Is it in focus at all? Shri Vivek Godbole. He's a Marathi Brahmin. And rural Marathi Brahmins from Maharashtra, have the best pronunciation, not counting, Brahmins in Varanasi. They have the best pronunciation. Yeah, so his pronunciation is super Paka, super accurate. But, it can be hard actually I wouldn't listen to it in the car. To listen to like very repetitive Sanskrit chanting in the car, it either lulls you to sleep or it's annoying. So I wouldn't I wouldn't do that. But to follow along with the Bhagavad Gita while you're hearing it, now that could be great. Now, who has good pronunciation in the kirtan world? Maybe almost no one, except, I don't know if she does kirtan, but Manorama. I've never met her, but I have a bit of a crush on her because she has perfect Sanskrit pronunciation. It makes me a bit weak in the knees. So she has a website called Path of the Luminous Shabda, which is just an awesome name. Shabda means sound, sacred sound or word. Path of the Luminous Shabda, Manorama. And she has great pronunciation. If she does any chanting, I think she does here and there. Some people like Vyas Houston of the American Sanskrit Institute. For me, it's just too Americanized. His pronunciation is a strong American accent. Yeah, I basically, can't think of, but almost all the kirtan artists have, it's either just bad or it's Hindiized. So like Krishnadas is not bad at all. He's just, he's got Hindiized pronunciation. Oh yes, there's a couple of, no. If I think of anything, I'll let you know. Okay.
Hello.
Hi.
Can you give us one mantra every lesson, like a short one, that I could, I can practice like on my own, like a very short one. It hasn't to be long because I'm really beginner.
Like shorter than the Gāyatrī?
I don't know.
Yeah. I'll give you a shorter one.
Something like that.
So how do you say your name, by the way? How do you pronounce it right?
Jaja.
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 Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, a good short mantra. I'll type it in the window.
Thank you.
This should not be construed a mantra initiation per se. I'm just giving you a mantra. Om Namah Shivaya. So most people don't say it quite right because they don't get that H in there. So listen carefully. Om Namah. Hear it? Just barely there. Teeny, tiny little H. Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. So you can say it synchronized with the breath. It means, yes, reverence to the divine. Or Shiva, in Tantra, Shiva means divine consciousness, the divine consciousness which is everything and underlies everything. So Om, reverence to divine consciousness. Om Namah Shivaya. Yeah, and it's got a very sweet quality to it. It draws the mind inward towards the center, the core, the heart. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Finally, let's see, Sean says about Deva Premal. Sure, everyone loves her Gāyatrī. I don't have a problem with it. She's not trained in good pronunciation, really. She's a former Hare Krishna, which reminds me there's another former Hare Krishna who does have great pronunciation. Yay, we thought of someone. And I'll type her name. Okay, Karnamrita Dasi. Her name means ear nectar. Ear nectar. Servant, literally servant of the nectar of the ear, meaning sacred sound. I guess ear nectar doesn't sound as good in English as it does in Sanskrit, does it? Karanamrita. Karanamrita Dasi. I have a little crush on her too. purely Sanskritic, though. Purely Sanskritic crush. Okay, let's see. Let me type her name more correctly. That's how you should search it. You can search it the way I typed it first, but the correct transliteration would actually be this. Julia asks, is the stress in the word always on the long vowel? Usually, but not always. Karnamrita Dasi. She has great pronunciation. Most of the people I know who have good pronunciation, who are out there in the kind of yoga kirtan world, are women. Okay. Manoj, we'll get to your question next class on the consonants. Let's see what Skylar says. When someone asks about pronunciation, or there is a conversation about pronunciation, what do you say when challenged? How do you know that one pronunciation is the correct one? Sometimes there's a little variation. Sometimes there's more, so for example, V, the letter V can be pronounced va or wa. So deva, dewa, people say both. But almost all the Sanskrit letters, almost all of them, like all but two, have always the same pronunciation. No variation is really permitted. So how do we know? How do we know the correct pronunciation? Simple, because of the enormous self-consciousness of early Sanskrit linguists who wrote down texts about how Sanskrit is to be pronounced and talked about the vocal tract. So they defined these terms that are now commonplace in linguistics: velar or guttural sounds, palatal sounds, cerebral sounds or retroflex sounds, dental sounds, alveolar sounds. We don't have those in Sanskrit, but we do in English. Dental sounds, labial sounds. All of these terms were invented by Sanskrit linguists, you see. So we have precise descriptions, and there's more than that too, of how to pronounce things. So yes, there is correct pronunciation, and it's defined very clearly. And if you get it wrong, you could actually say a completely different word. Or you might just be saying nonsense. So if somebody challenges me, I don't really care if they don't believe me, but if I did care, I would say, well, I have a PhD in Sanskrit and I read the Pratishakyas, the pronunciation texts. What's your source? But I'm not into that kind of argument anymore. But you can say, if you want, I'm learning from someone who has a PhD in Sanskrit, which is true, and who studied the Pratishakyas. So whatever, person. If you want, right? Okay, so in England, people say Sanskrit words so wrong all over the place. Asana. Let's do some asanas now. God, it's horrible. But Americans are just as bad in different ways.
Hi, can I ask you a question?
Yes. Hi.
Hi. So how hard or easy is it to match these with the Devanagari? Like, is there a relationship between the sound and the form of the Devanagari?
Yes, because Devanagari is a system of writing that was created especially for Sanskrit. So there's definitely relationship, and we'll go over that, I guess, in some other class. I don't know when exactly we'll get to script. It depends how much people stick with this, but yes, there are relationships, and it's not the point is you don't have to learn Devanagari unless you want to. There's plenty of Sanskrit texts. All the major Sanskrit texts you can read in Latin transliteration, with the Latin alphabet, I mean. So if you want, though, great. And then you can read all the street signs in northern India too. But it is a lot of work for most people to learn the script. And if they're not going to be a professional scholar, it's not really necessary, Thank you. So lastly, I promised to go over the Tigers play meter more accurately. I rattled it off last time, and was maybe made a little mistake there. So Tigers play meter goes like this: da da dit 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 da dit da dit 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 da 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 dit dit da dit da. I think that was right. Atma twangiri jamati sahachara prana sharirangrham puja te vishayopabhoga rachana nidra samadhistiti. Okay, so that was definitely right. It's the da dit part. I would have to write it out and make sure I'm doing it exactly right. But da dit, the whole point to doing da dit da, is that you can then say a meter without using a specific example. Yeah. Alicia says in Devavani Praveshika, the Kanta Varga, that's the velar or guttural Varga, the guttural class. Yes, okay, sorry. So if you look at the chat window, you can see Alicia's question. There's no problem here. This is all the same thing. What the dude is saying, soft palate on the website, that is the same thing as velar. He's actually not being quite accurate because the soft palate and the velum are not the same thing. But he's saying soft palate to just, I don't know why he thinks it'll be easier for you, but it's the same thing. So he means, when he says soft palate, he means the velum, the kanta varga, the guttural or velar sounds, right? So that's in the vowels and ka ka ga ga nga in the consonants we will get to next lesson. And this has gone on way over time. You guys your enthusiasm is wonderful. Last thing, quick questions. Skylar says, you can write in prose or in verse. Yes, prose or verse. And there are many, many different verse forms. The most common being 8 syllables times 4 lines, like Bhagavad Gita, verse 1, Dharmakshetre Kurukshetre Samaveta Yuyutsavaha. 3rd line, Mamaka Pandavaschaiva. 4th line, I lost my train. Dharmakshetre Kurukshetre Samaveta Yuyutsavaha Mamaka Pandavaschaiva Kimakurvata Sanjaya. 4 lines of 8 syllables each. That's the most common verse form. It's called shloka or anushtub. Okay, so we'll get to all the questions sooner or later. But if you guys want to order that CD from siddhayogabookstore.org, I'll type it in the window. But if you practice this CD has the chant that I started the first class with, and it has the Bhagavad Gita too. And if you practice reading the text while hearing the sounds over and over and over again, you will develop amazing pronunciation, because Vivek is the man. He's the one to follow in terms of a CD that you can actually buy that I know about. Okay, so thank you very much for your attention and love and excitement, enthusiasm. And next time we'll do consonants. Om.